The best things in life are free.
If I had $1 million, I wanna be a billionaire.
If I was a rich girl, and I am a material girl, all the women independent. She was all the money.
Putting on the Ritz. Taking care of business. Life in the fast lane. Money grabber. If you got the money, go on, take the money and run. Get your money for nothing. She give me money.
The more money we come the more problems we see.
Well, welcome to week one of a new series we're starting called #Money Probz. I want to say hello to those of you joining us via video at one of our West Texas campuses downtown. Hope you guys are doing well. Amarillo, one of the others. Glad that you're joining with us as well. If you're watching on TV, thanks for tuning in. Church Online, glad you're here today as well. June 6th through 9th, 2013, the Princeton Survey Research Associates conducted a survey asking a series of financial questions to just over 1,000 Americans. One of the questions that they asked was this: are you living paycheck to paycheck? Now, I want you to guess at all of our campuses what percentage the people they surveyed would admit they were living paycheck to paycheck. But I'm gonna make it easy for you. I'm gonna give you multiple choice, okay? We all like multiple choice, is good. All right, you living paycheck to paycheck. Do you think it's 0 to 25% of the people in the survey? 26 to 50, 51 to 75, 76 to 100%. So all that vote for A, 0 to 25%, raise your hand. 0 to 25% said they live in paycheck to paycheck. 0 to 25%. All of our campuses. Somebody raise your hand. Okay, nobody likes that one. Okay, B. How many of you guys think between 26 and 50% said they were living paycheck to paycheck? All of our campuses? Hands up if you think that's it. Anybody for B? Like one person. Okay, C. Let's try another one. This is a bigger number, okay? How many think 51% to 75%, somewhere in there, some percentage in there, said they were living paycheck to paycheck? Hands up. Okay, quite a few here at the Southwest campus. How many of you guys think it was 76% or more that said they were living paycheck to paycheck? You want to know the answer? 76% of Americans that completed this survey said they were living paycheck to paycheck. Makes me think, at our church, it's just a sampling across our country. So at our church, 76% of you watching me right now, probably, on average, 76% would say, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. 76% of you saying, 76% of Americans saying, it would not be okay if I missed my next paycheck, okay? If my boss decided to not pay me next Friday, I would not be happy about that, okay? Like things would go badly for me. And things would go badly for my family. Like, and some people probably say, so bad, I don't even want to think about it. Like, it's already bad now. If I miss the next paycheck, it's going to be even worse. So many people saying, hey, I can't go without the next paycheck. Things would not be okay. Here's what they mean. Here's what they mean. Here's what you mean. If I didn't get paid next Friday or whenever, I couldn't afford my mortgage payment. That's what a lot of them are thinking. I couldn't afford rent. I didn't get paid next week. I couldn't afford my groceries. I couldn't afford gas for my car. I couldn't keep my lights on if I didn't get paid. I couldn't keep my AC running so I didn't burn up, okay, if I didn't get paid. I couldn't afford, fill in the blank, okay? So you're thinking about this. I'm sure many of you are living this way. Think about what you couldn't afford if you missed your next paycheck. Just think about it for a second. If you missed your next paycheck, what kind of struggles would you have? What would you not be able to afford? Did you know it's really worse than you're thinking? Because not only are a lot of these people admitting they don't really have any money, like if they didn't get paid next time, it would not go well. Not only they have no money, they'd also admit they've borrowed money from others. You know the only thing worse than having no money? Having no money and owing somebody else money. Because if you have no money, that's pretty bad. I'm broke, okay? I'm broke. But nobody's chasing after you, okay? But if you have no money and you owe somebody some money, guess what happens? They want your house back. They want your car back. They want the money that they loaned you back. They don't want you to have it anymore. Give it back because now you're not making these payments, right? It's actually worse for most people than just living paycheck to paycheck. They've like spent paychecks they don't even have yet by borrowing money from somebody else. You scared yet? You should be, because this is a scary way to live. I mean, no wonder so many people are stressed out. No wonder so many people are anxious, depressed. No wonder so many married couples fight all of the time about money. No wonder some kids never see their parents because they're working all the time. Because that's just kind of what happens when you start living paycheck to paycheck. You know what makes this so scary is that if you had to be honest, just be honest for a second, if I had to be honest, there's no guarantee you're going to get your next paycheck. You know that. You don't control that. There's no guarantee. Your company could go under and then you don't get paid. You could get fired and then you don't get paid. Maybe you do get paid, but it's less than the previous time because your company's struggling, or you get a pay cut and it's less. Maybe you get paid the full amount, but you have an unexpected expense come and it just puts you over the top. And so it doesn't even matter that you got your full paycheck because now you have this expense and now you can't afford it. It's a scary way to live. It's a miserable way to live. You say, Pastor, how would you know? Because I lived like this for years. Tell you a story. So I married my beautiful bride, Emily, in December of 2004. About May of 2005, we moved to Fort Worth because I'm going to go to seminary. And I had a stable, full-time job in Lubbock with benefits, and they were nice, okay? So it was stable, looking good. Emily was a full-time student. We feel like God's telling me to go to school, Fort Worth, to seminary to get a Master of Divinity degree. So moved to Fort Worth. Emily's still a full-time student. She's traveling back and forth from Denton to go to school. And I'm going to school full-time. She's not working. Somebody got to work because we have nothing. So I go from, you catching this? Stable full-time income benefits to part-time income as a, don't miss this, youth worship leader. Now, not the worship leader that's like up here that you watch and you're like, I bet they pay him something. Like the worship leader in the youth department, okay? Think about it, all right? So I'll let you guess what I was making at that time. I'll let you guess, and I'll give you a hint. It was below the poverty line, okay? It was bad, all right? I was making nothing. And thankfully, my parents helped with rent a little bit because they were glad their son was going to seminary. Okay, so that was a little bit. But we were as paycheck to paycheck as it gets. And guess what? We were stressed out. And we argued constantly about money. Because usually in any relationship, there's a saver and there's a what? A spender. And what do? They argue about it. Oh, we should save money. Oh, no, just spend it all. That's why God gave it to us. So you know, there's the argument that happens, right? Okay, so, and just in case you're wondering, I'm the saver in our relationship, okay? And she would admit that she is the spender. And so we've had some arguments. And when we were living paycheck to paycheck, I'm telling you, it was tough. Well, about a year and a half after moving to Fort Worth, I'm working part-time. She's not working. She's in school. I'm in school. Year and a half into it, she has our first daughter, McKinley, who is 6 now. She's awesome. Love her to death. And she was born. We were excited about it. And I've told you this story a bunch of times. But she ends up having a heart condition, diagnosed in the hospital. They rush her to something called, you know, I've heard of it, the NICU. Just curious, at all of our campuses, how many of you have ever had a child in the NICU? Just curious. Okay. Some of you. How many of you guys know that once you get out of the NICU and you go home, you get a bill from that hospital? How many of you guys know that? They've been in the NICU. Like, they don't pay you to go to the NICU. Like, thank you for joining our unit. Like, here's some money. They don't pay, okay? They want you to pay them a lot of money, okay? And so she ends up in the NICU. I'm thinking, oh, get my insurance. We're good. I just had seminary insurance. It wasn't good. It wasn't very good. But I'm like, oh, it's going to cover this. So I get this bill in the mail. And in the hospitals, I think they like to do this to you. But they put the number at the top that you would pay if you didn't have insurance, just to scare you half to death, okay? Usually if you've been in the NICU for very long, we were in for about a week, it's like 6 figures, okay? So that number, and you're like about to have a heart attack. Then it says like insurance adjustment. Then you have what you owe. And again, our insurance was not great. So out of pocket, we owed $7,000 $100,000. Now, talk about a meltdown. Now, some of you are like, well, just why don't you put it on a monthly payment? Because we were paycheck to paycheck, all right? We didn't have room for another monthly payment. Like what happened to us was worse than not getting my next paycheck. It was worse. We had an unexpected event equal to like 10 paychecks, okay? What are we going to do now? And we were freaking out and totally stressed out about it. Thankful that our daughter was home and that she was doing well, but still stressed out, freaking out about this hospital bill now that we have. And I just remember thinking to myself, is there a better way to live than this? Like, surely there's a better way to live than how we've been living. Stressed out, paycheck to paycheck, arguing constantly about money. Surely there's a better way. Thankfully, we had some friends that introduced us to a financial guru. Has a radio show. He's written some books. His name is Dave Ramsey. You guys have heard of him at all of our campuses, just heard of him, just a financial guy. And they basically told us, hey, this guy, Dave Ramsey, he talks even about some principles out of the Bible. He says there's a better way. He says there's a better way. And he says it's God's way. And that too often people aren't living God's way. So I'm ready to figure out this whole God's way thing because, I'm in seminary, all right, but evidently I don't know much about God's way with money, okay, clearly because of the way I'm living. And just kind of a plug here, there's a class that my wife and I watched some videos from that we're actually going to have here at Experience Life this fall. You'll want to be involved in it for sure. It'll just open up your mind to all kinds of possibilities maybe that you didn't assume were there before. So it's called FPU, Financial Peace University. But anyways, I started looking into this in the Bible, and I want to introduce you to a guy named Solomon. King Solomon, that's what they called him. He was the third king of Israel. There's King Saul, he was number one, then King David, number two, then David's son, one of David's sons was named Solomon, he was the third. So Solomon begins his reign, and basically God comes to him and says, hey, Solomon, ask me for something. I want to bless you, I want to give you something, ask me for something. And so what does Solomon ask God for? Wisdom. God, make me wise. Give me wisdom to govern all these people that you've put me over. I don't know how to do it on my own. God, give me wisdom. God said, because you didn't ask for riches or long life or the defeat of your enemies, you asked me for wisdom. He basically made Solomon a promise. He said, Solomon, I'm going to make you the wisest man to ever live. And everybody knew it when it happened. Because the text says, people came from all over the world. This is in the Old Testament in your Bible. People came from all over the world to just hear Solomon talk. Why? Because he was brilliant. And everybody knew his brilliance came from God. Well, after it talks about Solomon asking for wisdom, it has this story as an example of how wise he was. Here's the story. Hear what he did. There's these two ladies, and they both had children within, a couple days apart. And they lived together, and evidently they were good friends, and they were sleeping with their child next to them, just really young infants, one night. One of the ladies wakes up and notices her child is dead. She's devastated. She thinks to herself, hey, the other lady, my friend in the other room, she's still asleep. I'm just going to trade babies. She'll never know it. I'm not making this up. You can read it. So she takes her dead baby into the other room where her friend is, trades the babies, puts the dead baby in her arms, takes the living baby. The living baby's mom wakes up the next morning, and she got this dead baby next to her, and she's devastated. But then she looks closer, and she's like, that ain't my baby. Like, I get when they're young, hard to tell the difference sometimes. That is not my baby. I know that. And so she goes to her friend. She looks at that baby. She's like, that's my baby, the living baby. That's my baby. And her friend's like, no, that's my baby. She's right here sleeping with me. That's my baby. And so they go to Solomon. Solomon's going to be the judge in this case. And Solomon says, so let me get this straight. Both of you ladies think the living baby is yours and the dead baby is the other person's, right? Right. He said, I figured this out. This is easy. They said, okay, go for it. Solomon tells his servant, hey, go give me a sword. Servant's saying, what do you need a sword for? Mom's like, what do you need a sword for? Okay, they're freaking out. He gets a sword. Solomon says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut the baby in half, the living baby. Give one to this mom, one to this mom. The mom of the dead baby said, yeah, yes, fair. That's what you should do. That's fair. Both get half. That's fair. The real mom of the living baby said, no, please don't. Just give her the baby. She can have the baby. Solomon looked at his servant. Hey, put away the sword. I didn't need it. I was just kidding. Give the baby to the second mom. She's the real mom. She didn't want her baby to die. Everybody's like, oh, dude, that guy's sharp. Why'd you use the sword, though? That's weird. Okay, so he's wise, all right? He was wise. People were freaking out. This guy's like makes good decisions. Like he just figured it out just with his sword. And I mean, he knew who the real mom was. And so the real mom gets the baby back. But this is the guy we're talking about. And here's what's crazy about this King Solomon guy, who God gave him all this wisdom. We got some of it. We got some of it in the Bible. It's in a book called Probz. And he's got these wise statements, and it's from God. I mean, it's from God. God's the one that gave him this wisdom. And he talks quite a bit about money. Do you think you and I would do well to listen to the wisest man to ever live about money? Would that be smart? Would that be a good idea? I think it'd be a good idea, okay? So I want to show you one verse. You got a Bible, you can go there. If you don't, you can write this down. It's going to be on the screen. You should memorize this. This is huge. And he basically just says this one sentence. This is how smart this guy is. He just defines your problem and mine. One sentence, period, moves on. Ready to see what he said about this whole paycheck to paycheck thing? Look. Proverbs 21:20. The wise have wealth and luxury, but what? But fools spend whatever they get. The wise have wealth and luxury. Now, you read this, you think, oh, he's saying they were rich and have mansions. That's not what he's talking about. You know what he's saying? He's saying the opposite. It's the opposite of this. So you could say, the wise don't spend whatever they get, but fools do. Like the wise, here's what he's saying. The wise save some. He's not saying they're filthy rich. He's saying wealth and luxury is having some savings. The wise save some, but fools don't. They spend it all. Another way to translate it. The wise don't live paycheck to paycheck, but fools live paycheck to paycheck. Ooh, hey, back off. This is what you're thinking. Okay, the wise, they don't live that way. They don't live that way. They save some. They have some left over. But fools, they just live paycheck to paycheck. Now, we don't use this word a lot. Fools, you know what it is. We just don't use we use other words, okay? So in case you're like, what does he mean by fool? Like I got out the thesaurus, okay? We'll give you some synonyms. Fool. Just so you know what he's saying, or this behavior's like, okay? Dingbat, all right? Dingbat, spend it all. That's what he's saying. I'm one of those, okay? Doofus, I was called this growing up. Okay, nitwit, they spend it all. Airheads, they spend it all. Dummies, they do too. So do idiots. Ignoramus, that's what my sister called me. Okay, Igmo for short. Knucklehead, okay, knuckleheads, they spend everything. Goober, they spend everything they make. Numbskull, moron is my favorite. Dipsticks, spend everything they make. And they borrow some from others, okay? Like they're dipstick. Now, I don't know if you're like me. I didn't dream and aspire one day when I was growing up to be a dipstick, okay? I wasn't thinking, God, make me a dipstick. That's what I want to be. That's just a cool word, dipstick. I don't want to be this. You want to be this? But Solomon's saying, and not about this specifically, but about this behavior of spending everything you make. He's saying that's a dipstick kind of behavior. It's a foolish kind of behavior. This is what he means by fool. Just pick one. Dingbat, dipstick, whatever. He's just saying, that's dumb. That's a dumb way to behave. That's a terrible way to live. Wisest man to ever live saying that. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, hey, Pastor, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you something. I would not be living paycheck to paycheck if I made more money. You need to call my boss. If he just gave me a raise, I wouldn't live this way. If somebody just offered me a better job that pays more, I wouldn't be living this way. Like, give me a little more money. I'm not going to be paycheck to paycheck, because there isn't anybody, even if you admit you are paycheck to paycheck, that want to live that way. You're not like, paycheck to paycheck. That's amazing. I love my life. It's great. No, you don't think that, okay? You don't like that. It's stressful, okay? Here's what you got to understand, though. This is what you don't get sometimes. You got to understand this. I'd write this down. Living paycheck to paycheck has very little to do with how much money you make, and very much to do with how much money you spend. Come on, you know this is true. Living paycheck to paycheck has very little to do with how much you make. You know how I know this? Because there's people, you know this to be true, that make a lot more than you. Tens of millions of dollars more than you. And guess how they live? Paycheck to paycheck. Not as much to do with how much you make, very much to do with how much you spend. Did you know there's other people that make a lot less than you? They make a lot less than you. And they do not live paycheck to paycheck. Doesn't really, I mean, you think it does. I've always thought it did. It's just not true. Doesn't really have to do with how much you make. Oh, I just make more, I wouldn't live that way. No, it's just a pattern. It's just the way you live. That's why you see retired NFL players, retired NBA players. What are they? Broke, bankrupt. They spend it all. They got nothing, okay? You can see this documentary on ESPN, talks about this. Crazy. And they had like $100 million. Now they got nothing because he lived paycheck to paycheck. They spend it all. It's crazy. Not about what you make. It's about how much you spend. The wise have wealth and luxury. Like they got wealth and luxury. Like they got some money left over. But fools, dipsticks like me, at certain points in time in my life, they spend it all. They spend it all. They live paycheck to paycheck. It's a stressful, anxious, makes you anxious. Stressful way to live, makes you anxious and makes you afraid because you just don't know if you're going to get that next paycheck. Now, you're like, okay, I admit it. I've been a dipstick. Maybe I'm a dipstick right now. I'm part of the 76%. Does this wise guy, does this wisest man ever live? Does he say how to break free? Like, oh, thank you for calling me out, Mr. Wise Guy. Okay, thank you. But do you got some instructions on how to get out of this paycheck to paycheck thing? I would like those instructions. He got some. He's got some. You should listen very carefully. He tells us how to break free. Take a look at this. You'll have to come back next weekend. Smiley face. Because I'm out of time and I get in trouble when I go over. Okay, so serious. This is what we're going to talk about in this series. He says some stuff. He can help you out. He can help you break free, but you have to come back because I got to go. Okay, I do. Now, here, two challenges, and then we're going to pray. 2 challenges from today because this is huge. I had to stop here because you got to do something before we can get to the good stuff, all right? First, you and I need to confess we have a problem. If you're living this way, just admit it. I've been foolish. I've been a doofus. I've been a knucklehead. You got to admit that because if you don't admit it, then you're not eager to know what the solution is, how not to live that way. You got to admit, I got issues, Pastor. Help me out. Show me the next verse. I got issues. You got to admit it. You got to confess that you've been foolish. And you know what you really need to confess? And I do too, and I'll help you as we pray in a second. I mean, God forgives us if you put your faith in Christ. It's just, it's just admitting we got a problem. You need to confess. You've put your family, yourself, if you have a family, your family in an unnecessarily stressful situation where if you just miss one check, you're in trouble and your whole family's in trouble. Why would you do that to them? Why would I do that to my family? We should confess, God, we shouldn't do this to our family. We don't have to live this way. It's one thing if you have to live that way. It's another thing if Solomon's right and you don't have to live that way. So at least I needed to confess when I was struggling with this. God, I'm putting my family in a situation where if I just don't get one paycheck, my whole life falls apart. Why would I do that to them? Why would you do that to your family? That's the first thing we got to do. We got to confess it. Second thing we got to do is we got to come back. And you need to bring a friend. I'm telling you, this series is going to apply to everybody and their grandma. You need to bring them with you because 76% of your friends are living paycheck to paycheck and they want out. Nobody likes it. It's terrible. It's a terrible way to live. It's a scary way to live. We don't have to live that way. Solomon tells us how to break free. You've got to come back and hear it. You've got to come back and hear it. Let me pray for you. God, this is good stuff. The Bible sometimes is hard to read because it steps on our toes, but it's good for us. It was good for me to hear this years ago. It didn't have to be this way. that I was living in a foolish way. I just owned it. God, you remember, I just confessed, God, this is foolish. I'm not putting my family in this situation. And if I don't have to, why would I do that? Why would I live this way? Spend everything I've got, and I can't even miss a paycheck without everything falling apart. God, I pray my friends at all of our campuses today would, if they're in this situation, I'm sure statistics say most of them are, they just confess maybe that they haven't been living in a wise way, that they've been living in a foolish way. And it's good to confess that, because then when you do, you're ready for the solution. You're ready for the answer. You're ready for your situation to be fixed, because you just admit, hey, I got problems. I've made some bad decisions. So God, thank you that you forgive us. Thank you that you've given us your word, and we can learn. We can get back up on our feet again and financially start following you, doing what you say, even if we haven't been. God, thanks for that. Thanks for fresh starts. God, I'm just praying for financial freedom for families in this church in this series. I'm praying that there wouldn't be as many arguments between spouses about finances because they get to a place where they're not paycheck to paycheck anymore. I pray they feel like a burden lifted off their shoulders as they get to a place where they're not living foolishly anymore. You can do it, God, if we listen to you. That's why we got the Bible. God, too often, I'm sure my friends are like me, we listen to everybody besides you. And that's why we're often broke, because everybody else is broke. Everybody else is living in a way in all kinds of debt to everybody else and ignoring principles that you lay out in your word. So God, my prayer for me, for us in this series, is that we'd listen to you for a change. Quit doing what our neighbors doing or what our friends doing, trying to keep up with the Joneses. We just do what you say, because you just know what's best. You know how to do this money thing better than us. Got to look forward to seeing families set free financially in this series from the burden they've been carrying of this stressful way of life. You're going to do it, God. I believe it. It's going to be amazing. Pray everybody come back and hear about it. In Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for checking out one of our messages today. For more information about our church or to watch other messages, you can go to our website at experiencelifenow.com. Let us know if we can serve you in any way, and we hope to see you real soon.